they're both bad for you. And that's why Kamala Harris, that's why it's so disappointing to a lot of people that she can't deliver the knockout blow to Pence. Because to a lot of people, it's so obvious that the Republicans are crap and that they're not good for you, that it's all fear mongering. But anyone that's not compromised would be able to deliver knockout blows to these guys. But the Democrats are so compromised too that all Pence has to say is, well, you guys were against fracking not too long ago, and now you're for it. And they can't even give you a straight answer, like the Democrats. And that's why they also come across as weak in these debates.
And you are listening to The Brown Perspective. This is your host, Eduardo. And I'm here with the one, with the only RO.
¿Qué pasó? ¿Cómo estamos?
Aquí, activados, listos para hablar sobre el debate. We're going to have the debate on the vice presidential debate.
Yeah. What did you make of it? Did you watch the whole thing, by the way? I could only watch half of it.
I sure did watch the whole thing because the nice thing is it was definitely more of a traditional debate, and you had some experienced politicians going at it. Obviously, it was interesting. There were a couple of questions that were not answered either by Vice President Pence or Senator Kamala Harris, which is fine. It's part of what they need to do. But I also felt that Kamala Harris had some good punches, but I also feel that she had a couple of opportunities where she could have been a little bit more land more punches. And obviously it's fascinating to see, as we see a debate between a female and a male politician, how, you know, their face expressions, their attitude, how things are evaluated very differently.
Well, what do you mean that they didn't answer some questions? Maybe Kamala Harris didn't answer some questions, but Pence didn't really answer anything. They would ask him a question, and he would talk about the American people and his trust and faith in the American people and how he cares about them. And that's also that. At least the first half of the debate, I got the gist of what was going to happen the next half. And the video that I was watching, it told you what was being discussed. So the only thing that I didn't get into was the discussion about Black Lives Matter, and what was the last one? I don't know if it was climate change. It was towards the end. So so those were the only two topics that I missed. But you just have to look at the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes to really figure out what was going to happen. And you're absolutely right. I felt that Kamala Harris, at least, I don't know if it's going to count for her or against her, the expressions that she was making, especially as Pence was deflecting and try to talk around and not give direct answers. But Pence didn't have any expressions at all. I mean, does the guy, he looked like a robot. He looked like the newer model of the T-1000 if they made a new Terminator movie. And they sent him back, and he was part of the debate.
And he couldn't even feel the fly on his head.
I know, who doesn't feel a fly on their head? Yeah, that was.
Reo, ¿sabes que a mí me dicen la mosca? Porque todo lo que toco es mierda.
Yeah, right. That tells you also how interesting this debate was for people, that the next day the thing that was trending was the fly on Pence's head. And there were videos everywhere about that.
It's kind of sad. I think we just become that kind of society that's very distracted. And I think, you know, in some ways is an escape from the difficult conversations and issues that, to your point, were not addressed or were not really discussed during the debate.
Yeah, well, we touched on this last time. I don't watch these debates because I'm looking for answers to anything. I look at them because they're spectacle. It's theater. It's entertainment to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you come to this debate expecting to get any substantial answers, you have another thing coming. Because even what they tell you at these debates, they're not going to do that. They're going to change their minds on things. For example, This was Kamala Harris, one of her weakest moments when she was defending fracking now, walking back from whatever she may have said in the past about fracking, that they're against it or that they have concerns about it. And Mike Pence called her out on it, and she couldn't give a straight answer. She couldn't even say, this is something that in the past I was against, but I've done the research, I've come around, and now I realize that this is something that we need to support. They don't even give you that anymore. They just avoid the topic altogether. And then all they want to do is hurl accusations at the other person and I think the strategy is that they hope that by the end of the debate, you dislike the other person more than you dislike them.
No, yeah, and I think that's part of what these debates have become. And it's also it's all about the sort of energy or the sort of attitude that the candidate puts out there, but also what people perceive. So it is about, is the candidate likable? Did they seem knowledgeable? Were they able to be quick on their feet? So I think there's a lot of more of the visual cues that I guess people will feel, okay, yeah, this candidate is either presidential or vice presidential. And obviously because the fact that both candidates at the top of the ticket are over 70, they'll be pretty old. So I know this vice presidential debate had more of a high stakes, right? Because you know that one of them will be, or maybe perhaps both of them will be probably running for president not in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and when they asked him that specific question, Pence completely ran away from that question. He didn't answer it at all. I think he spent the whole time shooting back at Kamala Harris for the previous topic, and then she talked about it a bit, but not really. So she didn't even give you a straight answer either. And going back to what you were saying about this becoming more about the appearance of whether or not they look presidential, it reminds me of the Bush-Gore debate, when after the debates you would hear people saying, and then the mainstream media also saying, that Bush is likable because he's the type of guy that you would feel comfortable having a beer with. And from back then till now, I always say, if you're making your decision based on that, then we have a big problem. Because, and this is the problem with these debates, that people really do make their decisions based on whether or not they like a candidate versus whether or not they have been consistent with their voting record, with the stand that they take on a particular issue. And so, yeah, we don't get a lot of that. I was thinking about this, and going back to the comment that I mentioned earlier regarding the goal is to make the people dislike the other candidate a lot more. It's like being in a situation where you have to make a choice between, you only have two people and you have to choose one or the other. One of them stole your car. The other one stole your bike, right? So in this case, Mike Pence and the Republicans, they stole your car. It affects you a lot more. You can't get to work. Maybe you can't go to family events. Whatever, if you only have one car, right? Let's just assume you only have one car and you only have one bike. So it really affects your life in a lot of different ways. But the Democrats stole your bicycle. So that still takes away from you, because maybe you used that bicycle to go to work. Maybe you used it for other things. But during the whole debate, all it is, oh, well, that guy, the Republicans stole your car, so, you shouldn't trust them. They're not going to do what you like. You should trust me. And then Pence is saying, well, the Republicans stole your bicycle. You shouldn't trust them. You should trust us. But none of them really even talk about the fact that both of them are taking from you. And then the guy that hasn't stolen anything from you, right? The third party, they don't even let him into the debate.
That's an interesting analogy.
Well, that's what it is. They're both bad for you, and that's why Kamala Harris. That's why it's so disappointing to a lot of people that she can't deliver the knockout blow to Pence, because to a lot of people it's so obvious that the Republicans are crap and that they're not good for you, that it's all fear mongering. But anyone that's not compromised would be able to deliver knockout blows to these guys. But the Democrats are so compromised too that all Pence has to say is, well, you guys were against fracking not too long ago, and now you're for it, and they can't even give you a straight answer, like the Democrats, and that's why they also come across as weak in these debates.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the Republicans have a simpler platform, a simpler message, but I would think that, I mean, that's always kind of the challenge with a more moderate position, because yes, the fact that fracking has led to the United States being, to an extent, energy independent, but also it's created a lot of issues in communities where water and other things have been impacted, and then earthquakes that have increased because of the fracking and other environmental degradation. So it's not as simple as, and obviously the point that Pence did, obviously highlighting an issue that's very important in Pennsylvania and other critical states in the election.
Yeah, well, it's NIMBY, not in my backyard, but for fracking, and this is one of the challenges that politicians have, and it does seem like the Republicans are a little bit better at this, in that they can't be honest with people because then they'll lose votes. So because of the mentality that people are generally willing to help, they're willing to say, yeah, they should raise taxes, or we should do this and that to help other people, as long as it doesn't affect me, right? So in California, as long as housing policies, as long as things that are designed to help other people, as long as they're not in somebody's backyard, that person will agree with it. But once they start getting a little too close to home, then they're against it. And in this case, Kamala Harris can make the argument that, yeah, look, there's some benefits to fracking, but the negatives are going to outweigh any benefits that we get, especially the long-term effects of what we're doing, like polluting the underground water reservoirs in some areas, and maybe even causing like micro earthquakes in some areas because of all the drilling that they've done. And so she can lay that out, and she could say, we really just need, as a nation, to sacrifice and stop doing this because we know it's going to have detrimental effects for us. But everyone that's involved in that industry, they're going to say, well, screw you guys. I'm not going to lose my job, and I'm not going to give up anything related to my comfort or my stability just to help others. So essentially not in my backyard. And that's why these politicians can't be direct with the people, because they already know that they're going to lose the support of the people. So on the one hand, I understand why Kamala Harris would flip-flop and not even acknowledge that she did that. But on the other hand, this is what's frustrating about the Democrats, that they don't take a stand.
Well, I think she tried to defend some of the green and clean energy investments that she and Joe Biden are planning to do, and making the point that we need to be forward-looking in our energy policy and our economic policy to make sure that we are training the workers that will be needed to work, whether it's building those batteries, building the water, the wind turbines, the solar panels, and all of the other green infrastructure that could really boost the economy and provide good jobs as well.
Yeah, but she's only able to make that case because the Green New Deal is a few steps separated from we're going to eliminate fracking. Because the Green New Deal is like a proposal for how we move forward, but it's a little bit vague, or they can do like, they can play around with the terminology and the wording that they use so that people don't feel like their jobs are immediately threatened, right? because what's the Green New Deal? What's it going to affect? Is it going to affect coal? Is it going to affect fracking? Is it going to affect the oil companies? Is it going to affect your oil prices? It's really hard. It's really hard to pinpoint a specific area that's going to be affected the same way that it is when someone's accusing you of being anti-fracking, which means you're going to shut it down. In those cases, she won't commit to a position. But in the cases where it's a little bit more vague, where she thinks that people won't directly associate it with something bad, I mean, they might associate it, but it's a little more abstract. It's not as direct or as personal. So that is, it's just a calculation. I mean, they know ahead of time what they're going to support and what they're not going to support. They rehearse these things for hours so that they know exactly what they want to say.
Yeah. And I think both of them, but particularly Kamala Harris, I think she was able to bring in some key points. I know one highlight for me was how she brought the comments that the president did around the veterans. So she was able to squeeze that in. And obviously the focus on healthcare. I think that healthcare played a huge role in the debate, in being able to highlight that this is what the current administration's actions will mean to over 20 million people if they lose healthcare, and now that they are likely to have pre-existing conditions because of COVID-19 and the poor handling of the pandemic by the administration. And the interesting thing, I think because there was a point when Pence called her, when they asked her, will you take the vaccine, and she said, no, I'll take it if Fauci and our scientists say is safe. And I think she made that this administration's against science point a couple of times. And then I think Pence came at her and say, I can't believe you're undermining the faith in the vaccine. And I think at that point she should have think, well, I can't believe your boss, President Trump, is telling people not to wear masks and is undermining the healthcare officials that are public health officials who are trying to get us to do the right thing. So I think she could have landed that left hook right there, as Pence tried to get her for quote unquote undermining the perception of the safety of the eventual vaccine.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I heard that, I understood it to mean that she was saying that if the medical establishment tells the country and tells her that the vaccine is safe, then she'll take it. But she said, but if Trump tells me, then what she was trying to say is that I don't believe anything that this president says. It has to come from official sources. And to the extent that she was saying official sources that have not been compromised, I don't know. It gets into a gray area if she was saying that. But Pence jumped on that, and she didn't clarify. And this is actually, as I was watching the debate, this is something that I felt that it's inexplicable to me why they don't jump ahead and address what they already know the other side's going to come back with. So Kamala Harris, they know what Pence was going to say, or they should have known ahead of time. And so she should have mentioned these things when she was talking about the why you should vote for her and Biden and what's so bad about Trump. And a perfect example is this one here with the lack of trust in Trump. And the other one was also when she was talking about how the terrible job that Trump has done with the management of COVID-19. And she said that it's been terrible for the country, that so many people have lost their lives, so many people have suffered, and that she finds it, I forget the exact words she said, but she said that he had done a poor job, and as a result of it, the country was suffering. But then Pence twisted that, and he came back at her to portray her as undermining the hard work of all of the Americans, all of the medical professionals, and everyone else that has tried to do something or to do the right thing with the COVID-19 situation. So but that's not what she meant. She was criticizing the response from the Trump administration. She wasn't criticizing the doctors, she wasn't criticizing the medical professionals, but yet Pence came back and tried to portray it as her doing that. And whether or not that's effective, it's hard to say, but it gave him a way to deflect, and she should have anticipated that. And so I don't know why she didn't, because she could have easily said, I have tremendous respect for all those that have put their lives on the line, the nurses and those that are in all the hospitals, and even those that are working at grocery stores, and even all the people, right, that are out there working, putting their
essential
health
workers.
Yeah, essential workers, putting their health on the line. And then she could have then made a clear distinction that she says, but the way this administration has handled it has not helped them at all. In fact, it's made it worse for a lot of people. And then that wouldn't have given anything for Pence to come back with. So those are just easy things that they missed. That it's surprising that they must have teams of people that are preparing them for the debates. I'm surprised that they didn't think about this, or that they didn't think it was important to do this.
Well, I mean, they probably thought about it, but you also have to think that it's a lot of issues, and you're dealing with both what you prepared and you need to respond to what is being said. So it's a combination of being in the moment and also being able to land your statistics and your rehearsed talking points and that stuff, and for someone to remember that. So I think maybe she could have, but I think it's also a lot of it is also depends on relying on your instinct and being able to go with the flow too. So it's a challenging thing, right? Because I feel like it's almost like we're Monday night quarterbacking here, because yes, she could have done this, she could have done that, but I think within the role that she played, and because of her experience as a prosecutor, a lawyer, somebody who can formulate questions and kind of respond to arguments, I think she was a lot more effective in both responding and also getting to the points that she wanted to make, even if she didn't make all of the points that I know you and I would have liked her, and others would have liked her to make.
Yeah, it may have, like as you said, it may have just been a strategic decision that they're not going to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that was one of the questions that she didn't answer, the court packing, and I think that's smart. Like, why answer a hypothetical about what they're going to do, whether or not the Republicans are moving forward with the nomination. But I was surprised that she didn't respond or say, well, you guys stole a seat from President Obama, right? Like, she didn't. She had the opportunity to say that and highlight that, and part of it might have been a strategic decision that maybe they realize that they really they don't have, saying that they stole Obama's Supreme Court seat is not really going to get them any points. So maybe they just decided to say, you know what, let's just focus on the message of the American people need to decide who gets to serve in that, who gets to be the president, who gets to decide who serves in that lifetime position. So I also thought that was like a missed opportunity personally.
Yeah, and that tells you that the Democrats, even if they win the Senate, the House, and the presidency, they may not pack the Supreme Court, because otherwise that would play well to the left, to the progressives, and to the liberals.
Scare the crap out of moderates.
Right. So it would energize their base, but it would also, it could also backfire, because the conservatives would then, so essentially they probably felt like the net gain is we get more turnout, and then, but they also get more turnout because they're going to be equally scared if we say that we're going to do this. But see, they should stop being afraid of the reaction from the conservatives, because the Republicans are not, and that's why they get the advantage. Democrats should probably just stick to how do they energize their voter base. Because look, there's more Democrats, liberals that don't vote as opposed to conservatives. So if they would have gone through that scenario, they probably, if they can scare the liberals and the progressives enough into saying, look, these guys are going to vote a Supreme Court justice in that is conservative. If we get in there, we're going to undo that, and this is how we're going to do it. They would get a lot of votes that they're not going to get right now. So a whole team somewhere is calculating and figuring out what the strategy should be. But I also just do think that the Democrats just don't care about that. That's why they're not pushing for it. So it would be
about what?
About packing the court, or about undoing the harm that the conservative Supreme Court is going to, or try to neutralize that in some way. Because if they're because packing the court like changes the historical fundamental constitution of the third branch of government. That's a serious undertaking. I mean, and again, it gets us to the point of okay, so now whoever is in power is going to change the rules, and then it's going to lead into that back and forth. That the Republicans are going to do that. The Republicans are going to do that whether or not the Democrats do it. They already got rid of the filibuster. They're going to repeal Obamacare. They're going to try to They're going to try to undo the voting protections, gerrymandering. Dude, they're going to do whatever they can to cheat. This is why the Democrats are at a disadvantage, because they're the ones that are trying to hold the honor and the ethics of the government, or at least they want to pretend like they're the ones doing that. And the Republicans are operating outside of those rules. They're going to run circles around the Democrats with that strategy. I mean, look at the strategy that they didn't want to endorse the Green New Deal or any of or be considered to have endorsed Bernie Sanders' policies, Medicare for all, and so forth, because they were afraid that the Republicans were going to label them communist and radical liberals. Well, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
So,
but then they can point to things that indicate that they're not radical liberals as they're being painted.
Yeah, well, and the way that I'm thinking about it is, if the Democrats cared about all these things, these strategies would reflect that. The strategies don't reflect that, so maybe it means that the Democrats don't really care about that stuff to begin with. The other thing that I'll mention before we move on to another topic is, she did try to assert herself. She tried to assert dominance in the debate by being stern with him and saying, "I'm speaking," or "Excuse me, I'm speaking." And it worked like the first time. And then the second time or the third time, Pence kept talking over her. And she should have doubled down on that, but she didn't. She just let him interrupt her and keep talking. So I don't even know if that was the strategy. That was poorly executed.
No, but I think she also demanded equal time, and I think there was an answer where he interrupted her, and she was like, "Well, he interrupted me. I need equal time." And I think that she tried to respond that by making sure that she got the opportunity to talk. Unfortunately, I don't think that she got equal time, because I do think that Pence, and I don't know if somebody has calculated how many minutes each candidate spoke, but I do think that Pence certainly overspoke. Yeah,
I think so too. So to wrap this up on the presidential debate, who do you think? A clear winner or more of a draw?
I mean, obviously, I have a biased perspective on this one. I thought that Senator Harris won in terms of how she came up. I think she came out as a serious, competent person who could certainly work and serve as vice president and even president. I think that she came across as somebody who's ready for the seat that she's pursuing right now.
I think she made some. I agree with you. I think she made some strong statements. She got her point across, but I also think that she came across as disingenuous, because as bad as Pence was as at evading the questions, she did the same. And so it's hard to draw a clear distinction, even though he did it way more than she did. But at least she did score her point. She got out there what she had to say. And yeah, to me, it was more of a draw. I don't see really this pushing the needle in either direction. Hey, what if I know the second debate has been canceled because the Democrats wanted to make it virtual. Trump wanted it to be in person, and they couldn't agree on that. So for the third one, what if for the third one, for the full hour and a half or 2 hours that the debate lasts, what if the response to every question made to Biden is Trump is an incompetent fool? What if that's all he just said for 2 hours? Like, don't talk about any policy, nothing, because everyone already knows what the Democrats, I mean, most people do. Just say that Trump is an incompetent fool, and then he could change it around. And he could say, "You're an incompetent fool," and then they just say those two things over and over for 2 hours. That thing would go viral. I mean, first of all.
Yeah, no, I think that it will be interesting to see now that that's going to be the final debate between the two of them. And I think, to your point, it is about what is Biden going to do to not only not let Trump get in his head, but also for him to get in his head and get him on his back foot, right? So and I think, to your point, making those types of statements, and it's sad because in some ways it kind of brings him down to his level. So part of me is conflicted. Should we follow Michelle Obama's advice that when they go low, we go high, or do we just go in the dirt and just wrestle with him in the dirt and the mud?
Depends. Do you want to win? That's a better question. Yeah.
But like you do in soccer, is also about how you win, right? And how you play the game.
Not true. Doesn't matter, man. Like the teams that have won the World Cup in the past, some of them cheated. Some of them did things that they shouldn't have done, unsportsmanlike. That win still shows up when you look at the history of who's won the World Cup, and no one remembers the dirty play.
To an extent, yes. And I'm not thinking about Maradona en la mano de Dios.
Yeah, that's a classic example. Yeah, the best example.
Hey, but that was before VAR, man. Todo se valía. Different time, different rules.
Yeah. All right.
Simpler moments.
Any closing words to wrap up this topic?
No, well, I hope that well, thank you for the conversation, and I hope all of you who watched, and if you didn't watch, hopefully you're taking a moment to study and vote. Actually, I know this week, those of us who live in California received our mail by vote ballots, so there should be in your possession. If they're not, contact your local elections official or the Secretary of State's office to make sure that you get registered or update your information, your address, so you can get the ballot. And I know throughout the state, everybody will have the opportunity to vote a few days early, sometimes as many as 10 days, but at least a full weekend to vote. So regardless of who you vote for, if you're a Trump supporter, if you're a Harris supporter, if you're a disillusioned Bernie Sanders supporter, vote, and make sure that you study the other candidates and ballots in the ballot, because actually I know that's one of the things that I need to do, because oftentimes you focus so much on the top of the ticket that you forget to look at who's running for your city council, who's running for your education commission, etc. So I think we need to be as informed as possible and make the decisions that make sense based on our values, or however we decide to make our voting choices.
Yeah, and sometimes that's where that's what takes up most of the time, trying to get information on some of these candidates in the smaller races. at
Hmm.
the city level, state level. So yeah, it's good call out to do the research ahead of time.
And ironically, those are the elected officials that probably have a more direct impact on your life.
Yep, yep. All right. So don't forget to subscribe to the Brown Perspective. Also, hit that like button on this video so it can help our search results. We're also on Instagram and on Twitter at Brown Perspec TV. Nos vemos.
Dale like.